everyone, welcome to Healing Taxi. Today we are going to learn about agriculture. This is a chapter in Geography for Class 8. This chapter is really interesting. We are going to know what is agriculture and many more things, and what does actually agriculture consists of. So, without any further delay, let's move forward. So, before I start with my session, I would like to start with a thought, which is a teacher can only open your door, you have to enter yourself. These are some special words of the day, which means that if someone is guiding you, it's in your hands that you have to take it or you have to not take it. So always listen to what your teacher says, and you have to, if someone is opening door for you, so you have to enter yourself. So it's in your hands whether you have to take the advice or not. So these are some special words of the day. Now let's move forward with our chapter. Before before we start, we need to know about what are we going to learn. First of all, what is agriculture? Then types of economic activities, types of farming, agricultural development. These are four main topics which we are going to learn. We are going to cover these first three topics in today's session and the last one in the next session. So zoom in. Basically, let's start with the first topic, which is what is agriculture. So everyone have their different definitions, and I know that many of us also know what does agriculture mean. But what is the actual definition? I'm giving you two options right now. First is agriculture only growing of crops, or is it both rearing of animals and crop production? So what do you think about? Basically, the correct answer is that it is not only the growing of crops, but it is both rearing of animals and crop production. So, the definition is the activity in which growing of crops and rearing of animals is done is called agriculture. So, remember that you have to add both points, growing of crops and rearing of animals, then only the definition would be complete. Now let's move forward to our next topic, which is types of economic activities. Basically, there are three types, which is primary activity, secondary activity, and tertiary activity. Primary activity is related to the production and extraction of natural resources. And agriculture, mining, fishing, gathering, these all are the examples of primary activities. In agriculture, we have the production of grains and different things is being done. Therefore, it comes in primary activity. And same with mining, fishing, gathering. When we come to secondary activity, we come to know that it is the processing of the extracted natural resources, which means that how they are being developed so that they can be used by us in a proper way. Some examples are manufacturing of steel, baking of bread, weaving of clothes, etc. Of course, we cannot use steel like in its raw form only. We have to, of course, manufacture it. Then only we can use it. Right? So this all is done in secondary activity. Then comes tertiary activity. Now, what is tertiary activity? It is the activity which provides support to both the other activities through services. So basically, these all things need to, like if today steel is being manufactured by a company, so or cloth is being weaved by a company, different companies are there or different industries are there, so they need to be provided support by something, right, through services. Now what type of services I'm talking about? First of all, transport. They are being transported to different places. Today, if for example in Ahmedabad there's cotton is getting weak, so it needs to be transported to different places. Trade, banking, insurance, advertising. Till it's not advertised, how can we know that this is a product, right? This is types of economic activities. Now, one thing which is really important to remember is that remember the spelling of the third activity. The third activity we all know is tertiary activity. So I am talking about tertiary activity, and some of the common spelling mistakes are this and this, like tertiary, and then tertiary, and then tertiary. So this is none of them is a spelling of tertiary. The actual spelling is Tertiary. So remember this. This is really important. Then some of the interesting facts, or we can say some of the things we need to know about agriculture is that agriculture is a primary activity. We need to know that agriculture is a primary activity. Then, in world, 50% of people are engaged in agricultural activity. So, in world, half of the population is engaged and half of the population have their occupation as agriculture. Then, two-thirds or 75% of India's population is still dependent on agriculture, which is 75% is really very much. So, this much is dependent on agriculture. And the word agriculture is derived from Latin words ager or agri, which means soil, and culture, which means cultivation. So, right? Agri means soil and culture means cultivation. Therefore, soil cultivation. But remember, the rearing of animals is also added in agriculture only. Okay, so now comes here the topic of types of farming. Remember that this topic is really interesting. So now let's know about this topic. Basically, there are two types of farming, which are subsistence farming and commercial farming. Subsistence farming is further divided into intensive and primitive. Primitive is further divided into shifting cultivation and nomadic herding. When we come to commercial farming, so there are three types of commercial farming. First is grain farming, second is mixed farming, and third is plantations, or we can also say plantation agriculture. Now, first of all, we need to understand through a comparative study what does subsistence farming means and what does commercial farming means. Then only we will be able to know that about its further types. First of all comes subsistence farming. Subsistence farming is always done to meet the needs of oneself, whereas commercial farming is done for sale in market. Let's know what do I mean. First of all, subsistence farming is something to meet the needs of oneself. It's not done that you have to do something, you have to do some trade. It's the commercial farming is for sale, for trade in market, right? So therefore, if we have to just meet the needs of ourselves, so then why do we need to do it on large plot? We are going to do it on small scale only, whereas commercial farming is for sale in market, so it is done on large scale. Then let's come that what does subsistence farming more about it, right? So third point is that in this household labor and simple tools are used. It's not very developed. Whereas in commercial farming, it is less labor and it is mechanized. What does mechanized mean? It means with the help of machines or the use of technology. So you can have a pic here. If you have a look here, so you can see that according to this, a plot is just this much. Whereas in this, the plot goes really far. Doesn't it? It goes really far. Whereas on this, it is really small. Therefore, this is subsistence farming and that is commercial farming. Now, let's know first about subsistence farming. There are two types, intensive and primitive. Primitive is further divided into shifting cultivation and nomadic herding. So this topic is going to be really interesting. Now, first of all, we need to know some of the words which are used and their meaning. First of all, what does subsistence means? It means living. Therefore, by the name only we can tell that what does subsistence farming mean. Of course, in subsistence farming, it is done to live, to survive, right? To meet the need of oneself. Then intensive. Intensive means extreme, which is intensive subsistence farming. Then primitive, which is very simple and not developed. Primitive subsistence farming, which means that it's not very developed and it's very simple. Shifting, it is to move from one place to another. And nomadic means to roam about from one place to another. Now, what does what is the difference between shifting and nomadic? First of all, know that shifting is that we know that we are not going to move. We are going to shift at that place and we know that we are not going to move again. Whereas in nomadic, we know that we have to again go to another place after shifting to that place. Now let's know about first about intensive subsistence farming. In this, small plot of land is cultivated by a farmer. Away in this, as we came to know in subsistence farming, same a small plot of land is cultivated by a farmer. Simple tools and more labor. Of course, simple tools are used that because it's done to meet the needs of oneself. Therefore, simple tools are used. Then, multiple cropping is done. Why is now the question comes that why is multiple cropping done? It is done due to large number of days having sunshine and fertile soil. If there is fertile soil, of course, we can do multiple cropping, right? Then the main crop in intensive subsistence farming is rice. So in intensive subsistence farming, basically rice is done more. Then others are wheat, maize, pulses, and oilseeds. Okay, so you need to remember these. Then this is done in thickly populated areas. This is done in thickly populated areas. So these are some 6 points which need to be remembered about intensive subsistence farming, which define this type of farming. Then first of all, this you can see this is intensive subsistence farming, as it was said, simple tools and more labor, right? And it's not very developed. It's extreme. That means extreme means something which is intense, right? Which is something very much. So extreme more labor is used here. By the name only we can see this. First of all, let's know about primitive subsistence farming. Now, primitive subsistence farming is also called as simple subsistence farming. Now, why is it called? Because simple tools are used and it is not very developed. Because simple tools are used and it's not very developed. We are using a lot of machines as we do in commercial farming. It's not like that. Then it is one of the oldest forms of agriculture. It has been done for ages, right? So that's why it's really old, and it is also known as simple subsistence farming. Remember that the other name of primitive subsistence farming is simple subsistence farming. Then primitive subsistence farming is divided into two, which is shifting cultivation and nomadic farming. Understanding with the pick. You can see this is an enactment basically. We can see it's not very developed and it's really simple. So of course it can be defined as simple subsistence farming. Then comes it's divided into nomadic herding and shifting cultivation. You can see that shifting cultivation is this and nomadic herding is this, and primitive subsistence farming is something very simple. Now first of all, let's know about shifting cultivation. Now, shifting cultivation is practiced in most of the tropical regions where rainfall is heavy and the vegetation regenerates quickly. Right? Now, why is it done? Because in shifting cultivation, we are going to know about the process which is done in shifting cultivation. So, it is practiced in most of the tropical regions where rainfall is heavy, right? And the vegetation regenerates quickly. Now, these are some 2 points which we need to know about the place where it is practiced. Then it is generally practiced by tribes in the forest areas. So it is practiced by tribes. There are different tribes, right? Then the crops cultivated include maize, potatoes, yam, and cassava. Then it is also known as slash and burn agriculture. If we remember, so we also learned about shifting cultivation in 7th, right? In which we came to know about its name as slash and burn agriculture, right? So basically primitive subsistence farming is also known as simple subsistence farming, and shifting cultivation is also known as slash and burn agriculture. So we also learned it in 7th if you try to recall. Then now let's know about the process, right? First of all, a plot of land is cleared by cutting trees and burning them. So first of all, a plot of land, it is cleared how? By cutting trees and burning them. Now, what is the need of burning the trees, right? First of all, why is it burnt is because the ashes are used to mix with the soil as to add nutrients. So the soil can be more fertile and the agriculture can be fruitful. That's why ashes are used to mix in it. Then crops are cultivated until soil loses its fertility. For example, the soil is fertile and it's going to last for as very fertile for 2 years. So crops will be cultivated in that time. Then what happens after the soil loses its fertility? The people move to the next land. They move to the next land. They again clear a plot of land. They again cut trees. Again they burn them, and then the ashes are mixed in the soil, and again the crops are cultivated. And then till then, there's a long process, right? So till then, in the previous plot of land, where they cultivated crops previously, right? Trees grow again, right? So again they move to the previous land after the, like, I want to say that they move to a land, right? In the previous land they move again after the present land has been used fully, right? So again the same process. This process happens and happens and happens, right? Now let's know about nomadic herding. As the name implies, it consists of nomadic tribes moving from place to place their domesticated animals in search of fresh pastures. So, as the name is saying, consists of nomadic tribes. Nomadic means roaming from one place to another, right? Well, now they are moving with their domesticated animals, which means which are giving them more, giving them a benefit. They are giving something, right? In search of fresh pastures. That means for more, for a place where they can keep their animals, right? Then which are the animals? We need to know this. The animals are cattle, donkeys, horses, etc. Nomadic herding is generally practiced in the arid and semi-arid regions of Sahara and Central Asia. So where is it? Where is nomadic herding practiced? It is practiced in Sahara and Central Asia. Just as shifting cultivation is practiced in forest areas, same nomadic herding is practiced in some arid and semi-arid regions of Sahara and Central Asia. And the movement of the herdsmen is influenced by climate and terrain. Why do they move, right? They move by seeing the climate and the terrain, right? Thanks for watching. So you can see a pic that they are roaming. You can see that this is a person who is making them roam from one place to another. Now we are going to learn about commercial farming in the next session. Till then, thank you.